welcome to your new RT1 Exchange video. Welcome to this channel where we taste, explore together and explain the wonderful world of wine. This is episode number 3 of our series about the prestigious sparkling wines from the French wine region of Champagne. Here through this series we're progressively explaining the different facets of what makes these wines so fantastic, so unique, so fascinating to taste and to understand. After looking into the different grapes and the varied terroirs of Champagne in the previous episodes that you can watch right here if you want to catch up before watching this, today we're looking into the sweetness levels, the brut, the zero dosage, the extra-brut, the demi-sec, etc. But we're not just going to be looking at how much sugar is in each of them or how many grams per liter, which is just so boring, but rather we're going to be looking at something far more interesting, which is how and why it actually matters. How does that work? We're really going to get to the root of it, not just meaningless numbers. It's going to be fascinating. Let's go. About 95% of all champagnes on the market, regardless of whether they're rosé, vintage or non-vintage, white or rosé, whatever the color, whatever the brand, all 95% of them are labeled as brut. I'm sure you've noticed that you hardly see anything else on the bottles of champagne. They're all pretty much brut. So let's get the number out of the way. A champagne called brut has between 6 and 12 grams per liter of added sugar at what we call dosage. Now dosage, as a quick reminder, is an addition of small amount of sweet liqueur containing wine and sugar before the champagne is corked, labeled and released and sold at the shop. Those 6 to 12 grams per liter of sugar, to give you an idea, is roughly the equivalent of about half a tablespoon in a bottle of champagne. It's really not much at all, but it is significant. So what does this sugar do in a brut champagne? This small quantity is just the amount that allows to make the wine feel smooth on the palate, but not quite enough that you can actually taste and identify the sugar and the sweetness in the wine. Champagne is by nature very acidic because it's made from grapes that are picked with a high level of acidity, so the wine tastes crisp and zingy, which is what we want. A little bit of sugar balances the acidity and makes the wine feel softer, rounder, fruitier. In one word, better. Yet, because it's only half a tablespoon in an acidic beverage, you can't really taste the sugar per se. And that's what's great about brut and why they are all virtually at this level. Brut champagne feels dry and crisp, which is what most people want from a champagne, yet it's not too aggressive. It's pleasing, it's enjoyable to drink. Brut is the perfect, or say more consensual style. So why would anyone bother buying a champagne with less sugar added than that? And why would champagne houses release bubblies as Extra-Brut, which is the level just below brut in terms of sweetness, or even sometimes as zero dosage, which is the term to designate champagne with zero sugar added? One reason can be that some specific customers may be looking for a very dry and acidic champagne. I'm thinking a top restaurant sommelier, for example, who are looking for something different and exclusive that pairs perfectly with certain dishes that the chef prepares, with a very delicate entree on a Michelin star type of restaurant, for example, or some seafood dishes. Sometimes you may just want something really crisp and dry. And why not have a champagne? Some champagne enthusiasts as well who love trying different things may buy this as well, because they've tasted everything, they want something a little different. Why not? Secondly, these very dry champagnes reflect the expression of the grapes and the terroir of the land they were made from much better, because there is no artifact from added sugar. You get the natural balance of the wine just the way the vines made it, wanted it to be. So for more vineyard-specific cuvées, if a winery wants to highlight a special characteristic of a plot or an area on their estate, they may want to release an Extra-Brut or a zero dosage. Finally, to make such a dry champagne, winemakers generally need grapes of excellent quality, grapes that have enough richness, enough roundness to them, grapes that are naturally ripe enough to provide the roundness in the texture that is going to make the champagne still enjoyable without any help from any added sugars. And you can only get this natural oily texture and body out of grapes grown with great care on some of the best soils. Coincidentally, as we talked about, winemakers like to highlight their best cuvées always in special editions and blends, and wine enthusiasts like to taste these terroirs on their own. And it happens that it is with these best grapes from the best vineyards that you can make the driest champagne styles that still have an harmonious balance. Quickly for the numbers, Extra-Brut has less than 6 grams per liter of sugar added, or say a quarter of a tablespoon in an entire bottle, very little. An intermediary style Extra-Brut is between Brut and the zero dosage, also sometimes called Brut Nature, that has absolutely no added sugar whatsoever. The zero dosage are even rarer than Extra-Brut. Certainly both are absolutely fascinating styles to explore that I definitely recommend trying if you ever find one. Go for it if of course you enjoy a very dry champagne, and you might enjoy this. If you think it's too acidic, maybe not. And I won't elaborate here too much about the various styles of sweet champagnes. They're pretty rare, you don't really find them. But still, let's have a few words about them and talk about why they do even exist. So as we've seen, anything above Brut with more than those 12 grams of sugar is going to taste identifiably sweet. It might just be a little sweet, like in an extra sec, which is the level just above Brut. But the extra sec level is really rare, you hardly ever see it. You may find some champagnes that are sec or demi-sec. Now what's really confusing, and why no one ever remembers in which order those levels come in, is that the word sec in French means, believe it or not, dry, while sec champagne is sweet. Even worse is that demi-sec, which would normally mean half dry, is actually sweeter than sec. So sweet is dry, or dry is sweet, and half dry is sweeter than sweet, or whatever. Don't ask me why, it doesn't make any sense, and perhaps that's also why so few people want those sweet styles. But you must know that a demi-sec may contain up to 50 grams per liter of sugar. So we're talking about 3 full tablespoons of sugar in a bottle of champagne. So that's quite a lot of sugar, and definitely sweet. Why would you want anything this sweet? It could be for some specific food pairings, like to go with a dessert, of course. And if you still want to have the word champagne on the bottle of sparkling wine that you're buying, you don't want to go for an alternative like a Moscato or any similar style of sweet sparkling wine. Some specific markets as well, I'm told, have a tradition of drinking sweet champagne. They've always been drinking sweet champagne, they continue to do so, like in some parts of Russia or Asia. It's very niche, but it exists. And to finish, let's mention the highest sweetness level called doux, which at least in French means sweet. Doux is sweet in French, so that, at least that makes sense. What doesn't make sense to me though is why would you want to drink a champagne with more than 3 full tablespoons of sugar added to it? I've actually never tried any, but it'd be very sweet. I'd be curious to try, but it'd be very sweet. And I'll leave it here for today. I hope you can now read and understand how the sweetness levels of champagne matter, and why, beyond just the sour sugar numbers that everyone talks about always, without necessarily explaining. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon in the wonderful world of wine. Cheers! Santé. Certainly both are absolutely fascinating stuff.